Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Shadowlands video. So, in this one, we're going to be talking about the leveling revamps that are coming with this expansion. They actually are quite broad, and it seems to me to be very clear that Blizzard want the benefits of the alt gameplay that came in the Legion expansion, but, you know, without the parts of Legion that made alts a little bit harder to realistically do.
Yeah,
and that means that we actually have quite a lot to talk about in today's video. So we're going to kick it off with the level squish. This one's actually pretty darn simple. It's not really a number squish or anything like that. It's basically just, if you're level 120 now, you'll be level 50 in the next expansion. In terms of relative power levels, they are all going to stay the same. So if a character is soloing old bosses now for mounts or farming or whatever,
yeah, nothing changes.
They're going to be just as powerful once the expansion comes out as they are now. Of course, that's what they say. Hopefully that's, you know, what actually happens, but at least in terms of intent, that does sound good. Now, along with this is a major change to the leveling system of World of Warcraft. And we're going to kick off explaining this through the new player experience that they're creating. So, there's a new island. It's called Exile's Reach. And
yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier, with new player stuff.
But that the expedition went dark, and the new player characters are members of a second expedition sent by their faction to this new island. This new island is a level 1 through 10 zone, and it's basically one that is designed to show off really what World of Warcraft is actually like to new players. Of course, time really has went on. World of Warcraft now looks very different to how it did in Wrath of the Lich King. So in terms of mechanics, like the zone, you know, art style, fidelity, all of that, well, yeah, Exile's Reach is going to look like a modern zone. And the idea there is that players play through that. As they do that, they're going to experience, you know, little glimpses of future content, and it's going to culminate in a sort of mini dungeon. It's basically a 2-boss dungeon. Now, you can solo it, you can do it, you know, with up to 5 people, and it's just intended to give people a bit of a glimpse of the World of Warcraft gameplay that, you know, we actually play.
What did you guys think? What do you guys think about that? Like the whole thing of the new system and all that with like the leveling area. I actually think this is cool. I think it's a good idea. I'm very glad they're doing it. Yeah, I feel like if they're the fact that they're even looking at things from the perspective of new players is something that's a huge positive to me. I think that's great. And if they're actually thinking about it in that way of getting new players, genuinely new players into the game, I feel like to a certain degree, Blizzard does expect to have like a certain degree of longevity for the game that in some ways people don't really expect to have happen. And so Blizzard, you know, expecting that I think is definitely a big positive.
Basically, the goal of the mini dungeon is just to give people a modern World of Warcraft experience from the get-go. Right now, the game does suffer from a problem where people go to join World of Warcraft because they see some of the end game, and, well, you know, what they actually see doesn't really resemble that, and it leads to some confusions. So that's the new player experience for, like, your first new character. And what happens is once that character reaches level 10, they'll go back to your capital city. And I suppose on that, they still haven't really told us what's going to go on with Teldrassil and Undercity, but maybe we'll find out later. So you go back to the capital city, and from there you actually go straight into Battle for Azeroth, and you play through the Battle for Azeroth campaigns in Kul Tiras or Zandalar, and that takes you from level 10 to 50, with 50 being the equivalent of level 120. Now,
I feel like that's good. Like, I thought that was a bad idea yesterday, but I actually think that's good. Here's why I think it's good. Is because, yes, all of you guys, you're very nostalgic about Burning Crusade. You think Burning Crusade is great. A lot of new players are not going to look at it that way. A lot of new players are going to think the newer zones with more, you know, like more intuitive quests and more voice acting and, you know, just more involved questing in general is going to be better. On top of that, it gets the players into the understanding of the way the story works. So if you're a new player and you play through Cataclysm or you play through Wrath of the Lich King and Cataclysm, is the thing they even says the war chief shuffle. There's 4 different war chiefs. Who's the war chief? I don't know. So for like a lore perspective and having the player to understand what the fuck is going on, if they start in BFA and then they go directly into the new expansion, it's going to make sense for them. They're not going to be confused at the decisions and the things that are happening in the game. Nobody's the war chief now. Well, Thrall's the war chief. Let's be honest. Everybody knows Thrall's the war chief. It's the way it goes, okay?
Blizzard's reasoning there is that going through Battle for Azeroth gives you, the narrative context, because, the story does go BFA, then Shadowlands. Now, the only thing that I would say to Blizzard is that the actual Battle for Azeroth zone stories, I mean, they do feel pretty incidental, and because they're all non-linear in their ordering, I mean, they don't matter too much to the overarching narrative of the Battle for Azeroth expansion. Certainly, Blizzard would, if they really want the effect of a
they matter more than what happens in
they're
PBC.
going to need to work out how to get that, like, war campaign lore into people, because I think if they just complete, like complete Culturass and then go straight into the Shadowlands, they'll probably be very confused. But anyway, that's basically what they're doing for new players. Now, what about for your second character or a new player's second character? Well, that one's actually pretty simple. You can just choose whether you want to do Exile's Reach or do your normal racial starting zone.
I'll do whichever one's faster.
You'll get up to level 10. You'll
that's
go to
it.
your capital city, and the difference will be that Chromie will talk to you, and Chromie will basically let you go wherever you want to go from level 10 through 50. So that means you can do...
Bro, dude, like, imagine this shit. Like, you know how good this is that you have to get to choose? Which one are you guys gonna choose? Let's see, how many dipshits do we have in chat? Which one are y'all gonna choose? Fucking morons. Anybody that didn't say WAD is dumb. Like, you do WAD, man? Like, you're just picking up rocks and you're getting levels. Like, you're just picking up rocks. That's another level. Put that rock. That's another level. That's another level. That's another level, right? Like, literally, WAD leveling is fucking broken, man. Like, you're literally getting level every 10 minutes in WAD if you're doing it right. Like, it's so insane. There's nothing that can compete with WAD leveling. Not even the fucking invasions in Legion. If you're doing WAD leveling, it is so fucking good. Expansion doesn't matter. I don't know, honestly. I will do whichever one is fastest, okay? That's basically what my plan is right now.
10 through 50 in Northrend, Outland, wherever the hell you want, that's what you can do. And Blizzard basically have done this so that you kind of get a full zone experience. Right now, if you go to Pandaria, you'll get through, like, Jade Forest and a little bit of another zone, and you'll be through that level bracket. And that's even with Blizzard trying to improve that situation in recent updates. So that's not really ideal, and basically this means that if you do 5 alts, you can play 5 expansion continents, and you can have a proper leveling experience in all of them where you get the full story. But that's not all, because this new leveling experience is going to be faster. They say 50 to 70%. That's roughly what we're sort of going with there in terms of the speed. We'll need...
I find it funny that... I find it funny that they nerfed leveling and now they're buffing it again. It's like, remember they did the, what was that, 7.35? I forgot when it happened. But they nerfed leveling, and then people were like, shit, okay, I guess we're going to have to level slower. And now they're doing it faster. It's just kind of funny to me.
To see how that actually does play out. But overall, you're going to be able to get into the endgame action a bit quicker. They just have so much content, they've decided. Just, select one expansion, give players a good experience and a far faster leveling experience to get them up to the endgame. Now, what's particularly interesting about that to me is, I mean, it does undercut something that's pretty major for Blizzard, and that is the character boosts, right? The character boosts have been a major source of revenue for the company, from what I understand.
That's actually true. It's a really good point.
Speeding up the leveling system by default, that very much does make them, a bit less relevant. I mean, if we're looking at, say, 50%, that's a big erosion of the value of the level boost. And I mean, I'm glad to see that they're making changes that they feel are good for the game, even if they do go against the value proposition of their microtransactions. So
see, I always thought that they, I thought that they did the level boost, right? They made leveling slower in a way, right? Because it sells more leveling boosts. So if leveling takes 1 hour, for example, and it's $60, the value proposition of saving 1 hour of time for $60 is pretty low. But if leveling takes 100 hours and it's $60, the value proposition of saving 100 hours for only $60 is extremely high. So the longer leveling takes, comparatively, the more valuable the boosts are. But what I think Blizzard ran into is people just stopped playing and stopped leveling new characters in general because it took too long anyway. So it's just like, it's too much.
So yeah, definitely
so
good
it wasn't
that
worth it. Yeah, yeah.
You know, they're not shying away from making leveling shorter just in the name of selling more boosts. It actually seems like that's what's happening, so good stuff there. Of course, this also all does tie into the class changes that they've made. So let's just say you start off a new mage. Well, at level 1, you're, you know, just a mage, and you're going to, as you level up, get abilities from all of the different mage schools, right? So you have your fire bolts, you'll have your frost bolts, and, you know, at level 10, right, you'll be able to choose your spec, but that spec doesn't, like, remove a bunch of abilities from you. And this is something that we'll really have to see the full scope of once the expansion,
which
like
is great.
Alpha and Beta comes out. But their goal is they want far more class-wide abilities. And there's
which is good, because that means it's easier for people to swap between fire and frost. If all of your abilities in fire are completely different whenever you play frost, you're effectively playing a new class, number one. Number two, you, like, the amount of, like, learning and everything you have to do is much higher. So I'm actually really glad they're doing this. Yeah, they're adding back poisons, curses, totems, auras, shattering throw. Basically all the shit that people wanted in Classic is coming back in Shadowlands, which is fucking amazing. Really glad to see it.
Also things coming back like, say, rogue poisons, paladin auras, so that's pretty good to see. And yeah, just broadly speaking, their goal is that by crushing it down to 60 levels between the talent tree unlocks, the new feature unlocks like, you know, dungeons and things like that, and then how they have bolstered the number of abilities that each class will have by reintroducing ones from other specs, or even reintroducing mechanics that were cut from the game, like spells that were cut from the game, that you will have far more rewards per level on average, which, again, I think does seem like a good thing. Now, as for the level 50 through 60 experience, well, that's going to be you doing stuff with your covenants.
That's just going to be a new
playing
expansion.
around with the different covenant spells as you go through their zones, and then once you hit max level, you're going to have a lot more choice there. But we'll do a deeper dive into the covenants and the sort of endgame class stuff in a future video once I've had a bit more time to digest.
I don't really give a shit about, like, the leveling experience at the max level, right? I mean, like, I don't really enjoy it a lot in BFA, but I don't care either. It's like basically one day. You take one day and you do it. And that's it. You're done. After that, you're done. You never have to think about it again. Yeah, that's basically what's going to go on.
It and also go a little bit more into the ancillary interviews that have been conducted. Now, I did mention at the start of this video that it seems pretty clear to me that Blizzard really do want a Legion-like alt experience, but without the downsides of Legion alts. And if you're not aware, by the way, they're really the same downsides that you have with BFA alts, where you've got to keep up on your AP and all of those things across all your characters. So basically the way this works is once you hit level 60, right, with your main character, whenever you make a second character, they're kind of calling it a new Game Plus-like experience. And what that means is, instead of doing the linear narrative of Shadowlands, doing the zones in order, where you're going to get a linear story, which, I mean, from a storytelling perspective, I think will really be good. I think it will let the story of the expansion's leveling matter a bit more. I think one criticism of BFA is, yeah, you got little ancillary side stories in every zone, but when you actually look through the broad plot strokes of BFA, most of it wasn't in those leveling up zones, so that could solve that problem. But of course, once you've actually seen that story and you're just going through it an alt, well, they will let you just go through the zones in whatever order you want. And they're also going to let you choose your covenant at level 50 on your alts. And that actually means that while you are doing your leveling content, you're going to have access to things like world quests and basically a number of endgame mechanics. We'll have to see how many. They have been pretty detail light, but their idea there is that as you progress from level 50 to 60, you'll actually be able to make endgame relevant progress on your alt character. So that basically means that once your alt hits level 60, it's already going to have a whole bunch of progression with its covenant and things like that, which again just makes the alting experience of World of Warcraft quite a bit better. So I think that means that if a player wants to have one alt or one character in every covenant, well, first of all, you're going to have a faster leveling experience 1 through 50 now than you will have had in the past, so that's one thing that they're doing. Then when you level those alts up, you'll be able to actually progress them through their covenants as they're leveling. Maybe that'll even include the covenant storyline, so I think that's another pretty good plus. And that's actually good. Not all. So Blizzard have no kind of like infinite but balanced by diminishing returns AP-like system. So there is anima and sort of anima power. It's what Ian joked about. It will be a thing in the new expansion, but... So
we have Azerite power, Artifact power, and Anima power. And what are we going to have after this? Is the game, like, the game becomes so complicated that Blizzard decides after Shadowlands, they're just like, we need to make this game simpler. We're just going to have AP as attack power. And every piece of gear has 2 stats on it. Attack power and defense power. That's it. And that's, yeah, you just want to get as much attack power as possible. And then I don't know what the one's going to be about after that, but it's not going to be good.
Like he said in his interview with Bay and Preach, that it's going to play out a lot more like Valor points in that it will be capped.
That's
you can
fucking
just,
awesome.
Go do it, and
that is fucking great.
And when talking about other things, he talked about how for a lot of people, that Blizzard think it's fine that you do your weekly Mythic plus 10 and then you're done. You don't feel like you have to do any more. They're okay with that. But basically what they do want to cut down on, and really I think remove from my understanding of things, is that situation where you always feel like you're kind of being dared to grind as hard as you can by the diminishing returns. And that kind of system of Legion, which, they seem to be coming out pretty heavily against. Now, I think when you consider that each one of the Covenants has quite a lot of its own content, like, mounts, cosmetics, things to unlock. So when I think that, there's those positive reasons why you would want to play multiple characters to progress along all those different axes and get all that unique content, it's also nice that they are actually developing the expansion in a way where it doesn't seem like you'll be as punished for playing alts. So overall, I've got to say that these leveling revamps, I actually think they're pretty darn good. And it does sort of make sense to me now why things like the new Recruit a Friend system don't have as insane a boost to your experience. Because, I mean, it's pretty obvious that if the base leveling experience of World of Warcraft is that much faster, then...
Oh, that's why they didn't do it for Recruit a Friend.
Now, that said, if you have the new default faster leveling time of this expansion, and then put a full set, well, like 50% extra from your outer zone, then you're going to be rocketing through the levels super quick in Shadowlands. And I think for some people that would be a pro. There's maybe some other people who wouldn't be as happy about that. But I think that because all of your leveling playtime will go into one continent if you wish, so that you can properly experience that continent storyline, that should be a positive thing.
Level as fast as
continents like Northrend, where I've got to imagine Northrend is just so large that really you could do 10 to 50, like... you can maybe do that twice in Northrend and have mostly different experiences. Maybe, one when you finish an Ice Crown, another one in Storm Peaks, something like that. Well, again, we just need to see what the actual final balance is. But overall, it does seem like things are a good bit better for leveling, especially when we think about the new player experience. And that new player experience really is one of the things that World of Warcraft has suffered with. Now, look, as much as WoW Classic proves that those zones are still super playable, I mean, it's in a different state, but... I guess my point is, right, if you look at, say, the Art of BFA and all of that stuff, if somebody then just jumps straight into Durotar and they're a new player and they are specifically wanting to play modern World of Warcraft, I mean, if they want to play classic World of Warcraft, you can go and do that, but if they want to specifically play modern WoW, then it's a decently jarring experience as compared to where they eventually will want to be with the endgame.
That's the thing, it's fucking confusing.
So it seems like this is a better way of doing that could be... well, I just think pretty good for WoW's long-term health. Now, that said, there's a lot of things that are up in the air, right? The actual minutiae of all this is going to be extremely important. Things like how they actually deal with you getting, more class abilities per level. The spec-specific things that they just give to a whole class. The talents that they rip out and give to the whole class. And the sort of flow and how good that progression feels as you go 10 through 50.
Imagine getting, imagine this, right? Like, all right. Imagine you had the talent system that you could choose, and then on top of that, you had your traits. Would that be too complicated? I don't know. Like, I'll have to see, like, all the other in-game systems, because, like, maybe it would be just, like, too complicated for players. I don't know. Yes, it would be. No. It's hard to say, because, like, we don't really know, like, what the in-game systems are going to look like. And if the in-game systems end up being very complex, then, yeah, I can see people having a little bit of concerns.
We'll just need to wait and see what the balancing is like on that. I think one theme, and I'll probably talk about this a bit more in the future, one theme of this BlizzCon is they do seem to be earlier than normal in this expansion's development. Like, they're talking about ideas and philosophies. They don't have a massive amount to show, though.
Good.
So... it is an interesting BlizzCon. I suppose I've got to wonder if we are going to have an August release date or not. But anyway, I think that's it for the overview of the leveling system. So let me know what you think about this down below. I'm very keen to see just what do you think about like a having the positives of Legion, the Legion alt experience, but without some of those downsides. I think, well, I'd just like to know what you have to say, so let me know down below. Thank you very much for watching this video, and with that, I will see you next time.
Okay. Okay. The leveling system. Let's see what people have to say about it, alright? When you know the information but watch Bellular recap it anyway, I'm starting to think Bellular is part machine, part gnome at this point. We must push for PvP vendors, we must. I agree. I'm low-key considering returning back just for this feature. In fact, they take the bullet and get less money for boosting is great. In today's video, more like in this hour's video. Oh, right, okay, my camera fucking died again. What else is new? Oh my god, what a piece of shit. Okay, thank God we have Bellular, otherwise I'd have to read all the Wowhead articles, and boy, that's a lot of them. You're goddamn right. My biggest question with leveling is, will heirlooms be able to work with the Shadowlands? I would, like, what do you mean? How is that even a question? Of course they're not gonna fucking do that. Who the fuck would ask that? No way they're gonna fucking do that. I don't even know how you could even ask that. Whatever, it doesn't matter.